We have a meeting, so we get the sack. Agenda item, apologies for absence. We've got, who've we got? Councillor Timothy and Councillor Aldred is subbing for Councillor Timothy, and Councillor Brown, when he arrives, is subbing for Councillor Peacock. And apologies from Councillor Brown just in time. Do you want to pinch your chair on that end and move it onto the corner so I can see you, please? And Councillor John Mann is not appearing. No, we'll get you a speaker, Councillor Brown. That's for the representation. Yeah. Can we get Councillor Brown a microphone, please? There we go. Oh. Right, we'll carry on. Minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of December 25. Any amendments? All those in favour? No, I propose on the seconder first, please. Attention? You got those? Yep. All those in favour? And we have 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest of anything on the meeting today? Councillor Katanak. First item on the agenda,
but I think it's mainly for information rather than taking any vote.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Anybody? Councillor, I thought you were going to speak, Councillor Swanwick. Just turning the mic off. Right, we come to the first item on the agenda, the Light Valley Solar Farm. Before we move on, is yours not muted? Is now. Right, thank you. Agenda item number 4, the Light Valley Solar Farm. Present Linda, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a report on the Light Valley Solar Nationally Significant Infrastructure Project, or NSIP, which is currently being dealt with in the Selby area of the authority. So the report before you today it's not a planning application as you normally have before you under the Town and Country Planning Act. So I'm going to take you through the difference with what we have with an NSIP so you can understand the process. And then the report today is requesting authorisations from committee down to officers in order to continue with the process as we go forward through the next set of stages. So I'll take you through and you'll understand further. So the Light Valley Solar NSIP is a 500 megawatt solar project. Solar projects over 50 megawatts have to go through the NSIP process to get a development consent order. They don't come through the Town and Country Planning Act. So the consenting order, the DCO, the process, this is a statutory consenting route for NSIPs, and it is enshrined in the Planning Act of 2008. Deadlines are set out in statute, so when we receive deadlines from PINs, we do have to deal with them. We cannot move them. We cannot do extensions of time, which you can do with a planning application. It's important to understand as well that the LPA does not determine an NSIP. It is administered by the Planning Inspectorate on behalf of the Secretary of State. We are a consultee, though, throughout the entire process and are required to engage with the applicant from stage 1. So the DCO process has a number of sections to it. Pre-application is where the developer prepares the application in consultation with the local planning authority and other stakeholders. So you're talking about the Environment Agency, Natural England, etc. And on this one, the developer has gone through pre-application and we're coming to the end of that. Second, then we get to acceptance, which is the submission of the application to PINs. This is big amount of information, which then gets published on the website. PINS has 28 days to decide whether or not they want to accept the application and whether or not it meets the statutory requirements. We are near that stage now with this particular NSIP. Then we get to pre-examination, where the developer publicises the accepted application and the examining authority is appointed. The examining authority is a planning inspector and takes on a similar role. Pre-examination lasts about 3 months. And then following pre-examination, we then get into examination. And this is the main bulk of the work. When we get to an NSIP, as a local planning authority, we have a timetable within which we have to abide by certain deadlines. Again, those deadlines are immovable. And it involves a lot of consultation and negotiation between developer, local planning authority, and your technical officers within the authority, so landscape, ecology, highways, etc. At the end of the examination period, there is a series of hearings. Some of these last for 2 or 3 days. The last one I was in, we had one which was a 4-day hearing. These are held, and the evidence and information is tested by the examiner. Local planning authority has to attend, and other stakeholders are also required to attend. And also those who have registered, like members of the public who can register to make representations, they are also invited to the process of examination. Following that, the examination authority makes the recommendation to the Secretary of State. They have 3 months to do that after the examination. Following recommendation, the Secretary of State then has a further 3 months to issue the final decision. The final decision, it does become law. The DCO is then law, and that's exactly what has to be built on the ground. So post-decision, there is a legal review period for a judicial review. And then, like you have with a planning application, there will be a number of requirements, which is the equivalent of conditions which they have to discharge. The discharge of those requirements comes back to the local planning authority to deal with. And there's still work to be done once we've got post-decision. So on this NSIP to date, we're coming to the end of pre-application. We've been involved from the start with this project, and DM staff and technical staff have also been included. Other stakeholders and the public have also been consulted for input. Submission for acceptance is imminent, definitely in Q1 of 2026. 2026, yeah. And then once submitted, as I say, we do need to meet these deadlines, and we're unable to do this without delegation of that authority for officers to continue with the work by committee. So our future involvement going forward, key things that we will need to deal with is the preparation of a local impact report. This report sets out the local effects of the proposed NSIP, and issues are likely to include cumulative impact. Certainly where we are with this application in Selby, there's been a lot of other solar schemes and other NSIPs. So there is concern about the cumulative impact on the local population and residents of that. And then impact with highways, ecological landscape impacts and public health, to name a few. The local planning authority also have to enter into and agree a statement of common ground with the developer, and then input into the content of the DCO itself. So that's making sure that the requirements or conditions are fit for purpose and can be discharged when the time comes. And then again, as already mentioned, we are needing to participate at examination, providing written representations throughout the examination section of the process, and also attending the hearings. So to come to the project itself, just to give you some context, I did include in the report an extract from the developer's website, which shows the project, but this gives you a bit more context as to where it lies. So as you can see, the main towns of York, Tadcaster and Selby, and then the yellow stars are the locations of the main areas for solar panels. So we have one outlier at Escrick, and then the majority of panels will be around Sherburn, South Milford and Hillam. There's also shown in blue where the main BESS battery energy storage system is going to be located. And then this all connects via a lot of cabling to the Monk Frison National Grid substation, which I've shown the location with the red dot. And then this is a replica of the plan, which was already included in your report. So you can see the Escrick site is up at the top right, and then the orange shows the large cable corridor, which will connect that site to the other sites of the project. The cable corridor itself is going to be quite a feat. It has to go under the A19, the railway and the river in order to access the other sites and then connect to the substation. And then at the moment, these are the only plans that we have showing what is going to be built on the ground. So this is site number 1 at Escrick. These are the outline scheme. So it would still have been developed from when these were published on the developer's website, showing areas of solar panels, and then you've got a landscape buffer area towards the north, and then landscape and ecological mitigation area is shown at the green to the south. And then these are the other locations. These are the ones near South Milford, and you can see Gascoigne Wood Mine is to the north, so they're basically clustered to the south and southwest of Gascoigne Wood, and the other side of the large spoil mound. We also have on site 2 where the battery energy storage system is going to be located. Again, these are indicative, and it's the only information we have at the moment before we then get the application submitted and accepted, and then we'll know exactly what we're dealing with. And again, these are the last sites, site 3 or 4 at Hillam and Birkin. So the report purpose is, as I say, to seek authorisation from committee to delegate authority to the head of development management in order to continue with the NSIP process and to approve and submit the local impact report, entering into and finalise statements of common ground, agree the content of the draft GCO, and make all further necessary representations on behalf of the council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. With no speakers registered, have we, Sir Jim? Nope. So we move straight to members' questions. Councillor Swanwick.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for your explanation of this process, which I'm not familiar with, and I suspect my fellow members aren't very familiar with either. What I don't quite understand is what are the rules on packaging a number of sites together, linked only by a cable? That seems a sort of vehicle that could be used for a lot of applications, but it means each one is not considered separately because it falls below the threshold of requirement of being dealt with by the Secretary of State rather than being dealt with by the local planning committee.
I don't know why this one has got such a long cable corridor, other than I imagine land availability. I have raised exactly what you said, why we've got one up here and a cluster down here with the developer, and the developer has assured me that the cable corridor will just be for this project only and would not permit other sites to kind of piggyback on the cabling. But that's what's been put forward, and if PINS accept it as the application, and I don't believe they've raised an issue about it now, is what we need to deal with.
Supplementary. Councillor Cattaner.
Thank you, Chairman. And I think I might know what the answer will be. We had an application for a solar farm in Hillam, which we refused, but then it was approved under appeal. I'm assuming that is separate from this then.
Yes, that would be separate, and that would have come through the normal Town and Country Planning Act process to the committee, whereas this is going down the separate parallel route. Yeah.
So they're saying nothing else can come in. So the one that has been approved will have to find a connection in a different way.
You have to find its own connection. Yeah.
Right.
So this, from my understanding, this connection is only for the 500 kilowatt, megawatt. What is it now? Sorry, megawatt that they've shown, and it's not going to be permitted for anything larger. So you can't actually have anything connecting into it because the.
No, I understand, but it does seem somewhat perverse.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, several questions. The first one is strategy for site maintenance. As you know, I'm always very concerned to make sure it's not 30 years of spraying with glyphosates and that there's some kind of grazing strategy. Is there any information we have about the developer's intention? Do they intend to spray it or do they intend to graze it and produce some food?
Thank you. This question was raised earlier, and I've tried to seek the information out, and I've not been informed of the strategy. But certainly, it's a question that I can raise with the developer going forward. I know grazing tends to be a common option, but which way and what option the developer has for this, I don't know at this time.
Second question is, I'm trying to get an understanding of the relative size of the area covered by solar panels and the relative size of the area covered by the battery storage unit, because they're obviously two different purposes and sets of gains and losses. Is there any information we've got on how big I know the site itself is 2,500 acres, but I'm trying to get how much of it is covered by solar panels. And I'm also trying to get separately how much of it is covered by the battery storage unit, which I think is much smaller.
Thank you. Okay. I don't have the exact answer at the moment. It will depend on what they come forward with and how much of the site. I mean, for this one that I'm showing at Escrick, there's landscape mitigation and ecological mitigation involved with the site, and then for these ones which I've shown 2, 6, 7 and 8, you can see there seems to be on this plan a lot more solar panel coverage of the site compared to mitigation. But I don't know, these may have changed from these being published on the website and what we finally have before us, but I will ask. The BESS is only going to be on one site, which is site 2. Again, I don't know. Battery storage technology improves all the time, so sites can actually reduce in size as we go forward. So that's all information which we don't have at the moment, but I will try and find out.
Thank you, that's helpful. So it's basically part of site 2, which is relatively smaller than some of the other sites. It's used for the battery storage. I understand that now. Thank you. Just from your presentation, I'm really struggling to understand the reason for the Escrick inclusion. In terms of the other sites, what's the distance to the nearest feed into the grid point? And from Escrick, what's the distance to the feed into the grid? It looks to me, as an amateur, like there's a short distance between most of the sites, which gives us a logic for why they might be there. But there's a considerable distance from the Escrick site, and I don't understand the logic of including that. I just need to understand that better.
That's how it's been presented to us, I'm afraid, Councillor. The developer has clearly managed to obtain that land, and they wish to use it. So they've made the application fit to what they've got. There is only one connection, and that is to the National Grid substation, which is down here at Monk Fryston. So everything will connect only into that substation. So it all has to be cabled through. But yeah, that the only information. I haven't had a definitive answer as to why Escrick has been included, and clearly we all know it's some distance away.
Finally, for me then, would it be reasonable for us in our submission to ask questions and make concerns evident about that if that's the way the committee goes? So is it reasonable to raise concerns about one part of the site, saying that feels more inappropriate than others?
I think going forward, we can certainly raise concerns if we have what we've got in front of us, and we will need to deal with it as per that. I don't think there will be any change to the scheme, and certainly not significant. That site, I don't think will come out. It will remain. We can feed back and ask for further clarification going forward as to that site selection for site A and the purposes behind it. That is something that we can feed back, and I'm happy to seek further details from the developer on the site selection for that one. That's probably what I can offer at the moment. Yeah.
Councillor Packer, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think I might have been responsible for asking the head of development management that this should go before a committee, but I'm now beginning to wonder why I asked. Because it looks to me as though we've actually got nothing, no impact on this decision-making process at all. I suppose I could ask the question, what happens if we don't give delegated powers? But I think I know the answer to that, and that is that we'll miss the deadline, and the council will then not get to make any comment. So I think it's fairly unsatisfactory from the point of view of local councillors, because our input is very limited. So moving on from that, I wanted to ask a few other questions as well, if I may. Paragraph 4, I think it is. Yeah, paragraph 4 of the. I can't find it now. I've marked it very carefully. Page 13. Page 13, yeah. So paragraph 4.4 is about site selection.
Page 21.
Page 13. No, looking at paragraph 6.9 of page 21. Is it?
Page 21.
Thanks. Yeah, site selection. I'm not quite sure about how we're looking at site selection here. I mean, what are we saying in terms of how sites are selected? Because isn't site selection based on a willing landowner rather than anything else?
Thank you. Yeah, you're referring to the response to the peer that I appended.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the comments in there. Yeah, it will be based on a willing landowner. That's true, but also it's whether or not with site selection, why have they chosen this particular substation? Have there been other substations that they could have connected into? If so, what's the process and why were they discounted? Clearly, the local concerns of the area, and also the amount of solar development that has been approved in the south of the Selby area. So it's trying to understand why that particular substation and what's driven the site selection for it, if that makes sense.
Up to a point, but I think logically anyone would say that site selection depends on someone coming forward that's willing to provide the land. That's as simple as that.
It will
It's not
do.
based on any other deeper planning ideas. It's just based on whether or not the land's available.
Yeah, I agree. It will be based on willing landowners. Whether or not there were other sites in the area that they discounted, for whatever reason, I don't have that information.
Yeah, okay. One other issue that I think is really important locally, which I've picked up from residents and town councils, but when you mentioned the local impact report, you mentioned cumulative impact, highways, ecology, landscape. But the issue that I've picked up most strongly locally is impacts on community and residential amenity. And I look at some of these proposals for these individual sites. I'm quite horrified to see that in the middle of some of them, you've got a house, and not a house which is owning the land around it. So someone is actually living in a house that's going to be completely surrounded by solar panels. And if this goes ahead, they've got no say about that, apart from to object. I take residential amenity in these issues really seriously. So what I want to make sure, and I was reasonably happy with what you'd said, but I want to make sure that that issue is really pushed, because it is the most important issue in my view. The landscape impacts are really important as well, but residential amenity is critical. That's not really a question, but
No, that's fine. And certainly, landscape impact and how you experience the landscape also has an impact on your health. We do know the benefits of people going out for walks, and the benefits of open space. So they are connected as well. And certainly landscape officers and public health officers, we have been raising this with the developer. But based on your comments, we'll certainly raise this and keep the pressure up to get more information and try and reduce the impact, if possible, on those particular residents and communities.
yeah, I mean, they're easy to spot from just looking at the plans, which ones are really affected. Just a couple of other things. The examination, is that likely to be held locally?
Previous examinations for Yorkshire Green and Helios were actually held at Escrick. That may not be the case with this, considering that Escrick is quite a large site. So I don't know. Hopefully they will be held locally, and I would be feeding back if they're not. But it's down to pins as to where they hold it. They clearly have a good relationship with their location in Escrick. It might be where they go, but we don't know. But I know with local concern, we're likely to be attended by local residents. So
yeah, I mean, obviously from my point of view, and I'm sure from residents' point of view, it needs to be somewhere that is accessible. We don't really want it to be held in London or York or somewhere like that. It's not going to help.
oh, no, there will be local.
Good. Okay, that's what I needed to know. And I think that was all my questions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nick Brown, please.
There we are. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
I'm substituting for Councillor Peacock today, as you're probably aware. Sorry I was a little late. There's a major accident, I think, on the road from Topcliffe to North Allison. My only question really is on page 22, paragraph 4.8. It may have slightly been answered in the previous question. I do agree with him that we seem to have very little power these days of objecting to anything if it's called in and it's done in another. The decisions are taken in another place. I know this is all part of the national policy regarding solar and other renewables. But on this particular paragraph, you say we have concern about the potential negative cumulative effects. What, in your view, are those potential negative cumulative effects, please? I do know the Escrick area particularly, and it's a very attractive area. outside of York. I don't know, if I'm being honest, the areas included in this application, but Esquith in particular is quite a beautiful area. So potential negative cumulative effects. I'm just interested if you can list those out, please.
Thank you. Yes, it is more, the cumulative impacts. You're going to have people experiencing the landscape totally differently, because instead of being able to go out for a walk to take their dog down a particular route, potentially instead of that being a footpath, that will then be a footpath still, but either side you'll have fencing and then solar panels. So your experience will completely and utterly change, and that may have an impact on your health because of it. Again, because we know how valuable open spaces and footpaths are. Stress, obviously, because of the number of developments that are coming forward and people's concerns about them. So that is one impact. And then you get the visual impact as well from people not being able, having their outlook from their rear gardens changing from a field to solar panels, and then concerns about highways impact and how that's going to impact. So there's an awful lot about which is connected. A lot of it, landscape and recreational can be connected with the impact on human health as well, and that is something that we are looking at. So certainly, because we've had a lot of solar developments that have come forward through the standard planning application process. We've also had another NSIP for a large solar farm which got consented last year. They're all in the same area, and then you've got battery storage, which we've got a lot of in that area as well because of the power station connections and the grid connections. All of it, people are just feeling it's all on top of them. It's all overwhelming, and you can understand where they're coming from with their concerns. So it's unpicking those and presenting those and the impacts on human health from the cumulative impact of these proposals.
The people who are going to be affected by this application, I presume they will be able to, in a public inquiry scenario, be able to express their views in this particular application.
Certainly. The public can certainly write in and object and make representations, and there are opportunities to present at the examination the concerns that they've got. So yes, there is that process for people to do that. Again, because of the way the process works, that's done directly via PINS instead of coming to the council. So if I receive anything, being the lead officer, then I will forward it on to PINS. So if anybody does not quite understand the process, I'll pass that on to make sure that they get their letter sent forward.
Just as a matter of interest, thank you for that. Does the former school that was in Esquith, is that covered by this application?
No.
Queen Margaret's?
No, Queen Margaret, this is towards the south, the south of the village. So Queen Margaret's, as was, isn't affected by it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kettler.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you for the previous question, because it's just reminded me, presumably, when we're looking at this or when the inspectorate's looking at this, will they be taking into consideration that about 2 to 3 miles from the Esquith site, there is a proposal for a new town?
Well
done, Tricia.
I don't know where we are with that, and but I mean certainly we can raise that to them and let them know of a potential development.
Because my gut feeling it's the same landowner.
I wouldn't know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, yeah, please.
Apologies, I meant to have raised this earlier, but just to let committee know that I received yesterday a representation from a member of the public, which was also copied into the chair, vice chair and councillor Catanack. raising concerns over discrepancies in Light Valley Solar documentation on highways use, accesses, and who was going to be effective sensitive receptors. So the concerns also were raised over the impact of the proposal on Hamerton Hough, which is a local nature reserve, and I quote, serious discrepancies in the materials presented by Light Valley Solar consultation documents compared to other significant projects addressing the same issues in the same area. These issues I had noted, and I will look into these alongside the support of technical officers as the DCO process continues, and I will forward the representation onto PINS. So I just wanted to update you on that.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, is there any debate? Well,
Right, yeah. I mean, my comment is that this entire policy is barking mad. It really, really is. That we're covering our good agricultural land with solar panels. And yet in the Selby district, we had Kellingley Colliery, a huge site, which is now being built off, they're now putting their storage and haulage, huge warehouses. And guess what? They don't have any solar panels on their roofs. It's insane. You had Eggborough Power Station, again, huge storage, which means, and storage means HGVs, more and more, careful there, I stopped, more and more HGVs on our rural roads. And then you've got Gascoigne Wood, same again. That's when all the coal from the Selby coalface actually came up. Another huge site, storage and haulage. And it's absolutely insane. We're now covering all this. I'm pleased to say it's the other side of the River Aire from my area. But it's just madness. We should be putting solar panels on roofs. And we're going to have, at this rate, we're going to have an agricultural crisis. I mean, the farmers will be stinking rich. Oh, we're not going to be able to grow our own food. This is in the Vale of York, which is meant to be very fertile, lots of vegetables, lots of stuff growing. And all we're going to be growing is solar panels, solar farms. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Miliband's an idiot. Quote.
I'm not sure we can take that as a quote, thanks, John. But we'll move on. Fact. Andy Brown, please, Councillor.
Yeah, I need to probably be honest with people. I remember the Green Party don't normally declare political allegiances here, but I think it matters for this debate that people know that. There's a myth going around that environmentalists want to cover the countryside with solar panels and don't give a damn about either food security or communities. I think that's completely wrong, simply isn't true. To me, food security matters just as much as the climate and nature crisis and energy security. So I think we need to look at it absolutely with a balance and give our advice to the decision makers absolutely with a balance. And to me, there are some gains from this scheme, but there are also some very significant losses that shouldn't be underestimated. The gain is obviously 500 kilowatts of energy generation is quite significant, but we're losing a very large area of prime agricultural land. And the cumulative impact on a rural community and rural landscape looks very significant. I can't see any sweeteners or community gain offered to the community. It's all lost for the community. There's no contributions to community halls or that kind of thing. And the energy generated by this is very seasonal and more unreliable than another generation. So I'm not yet convinced that the gains fully outweigh the losses of the solar panel parts of the scheme, or all of them, particularly when you take the points that have just been made about warehouses going up with no solar panels on a roof, which are absolutely ridiculous to do that. And also, will any new housing go up without requiring solar panels? I know we are very hot on trying to get that, but collectively as a nation, it's allowed. So I'm not sure I'd vote for this element, particularly the Estwick bit. Unfortunately, that's not for us to decide. And I think the officers have summed up the balance quite well. I'm going to make some other comments in a minute, but I would propose officers' recommendation formally because I think that's the only alternative before us. However, there is one bit where I think the gains of it probably do significantly outweigh the losses. That battery storage unit is going to be storing energy at 12 pence an hour at night, regardless of any solar panels, and releasing it at 30 when the energy would cost 34 pence. And it's going to do so in a way that at the moment we've got windmills running on the North Sea at night that we're paying to turn off because we haven't got enough storage in the country. The area of land that covers is a lot less. And all the stuff about fire risks, I think, are considerably overblown. So I think we need much more energy storage than we do lots of fields covered by solar panels. And the losses here are much less substantial and the gains much more serious. So I would support that bit of the scheme if it was possible. In terms of biodiversity, I really want us to stress this point about grazing, not spraying with glyphosate. So, I mean, it's a sad reality that some modern farming practices mean that if this is covered with solar panels, it would generate more nature than if it's farmed. Because of the amount of trees, hedgerows and long grass, etc. But if we spray it with glyphosate for 30 years, a chemical that's known Bayer paid £10.9 billion in compensation because of cancer cases. So it's a serious thing if we allow this area to be sprayed for 30 years. So can officers please really stress the importance of that? Can we be stronger in what we say about best and most versatile land? Yeah, and the loss of that. I think make some points about site selection, but I don't think we're strong enough about that, and I certainly don't think we're strong enough about Estrick. You know, I really do think that that outlier site, which requires a very long connection going past lots of communities, it doesn't add up in terms of logic of site selection. It only adds up in terms of what the people own. And the points about residential amenity as well, that really, I didn't put that up, and credit to colleagues who did. The report's not clear enough in stating that there are people who are being surrounded by it, and that's a serious issue. And I don't think we're strong enough either on cumulative impact. So I would firmly propose that we go with the recommendation, but I would ask that we strengthen our response and are clearer about what we find acceptable and what we don't find acceptable if I've got anywhere close to the mood of the rest of the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Peckham.
Thanks, Chair. Just on one note, we keep hearing the mention of Escrick, and yeah, we need to take into account the impacts on Escrick. But the major impacts of these schemes are on actually South Milford and Hillam and Monk Fryston. And those are the areas where I want us to concentrate on what those impacts are. And it's not an area devoid of landscape beauty or attraction. We've got Hambleton Hough, we've got the Limestone Ridge, and it's a nice rural area. So Escrick isn't exceptional in this area. The other parts of the area are worthy of protection as well. And in fact, quite a lot of them are in Alila, which is a landscape input. It's relating to its landscape importance in the previous local plan. I thank Councillor Brown for mentioning residential amenity again, because I do think that's a critical issue. And I do hope that we can strengthen our points on that. I don't want to find ourselves in a position where we haven't properly argued about the impacts on even individual residential properties when it comes to the decision. I'm not going to make any comment on best and most valued land. I think that's a much wider argument, but I would support what John said about potential for making much greater use of industrial buildings, and I wish we could we could get on and do that. Apart from that, I think it's a good report, Renda, and apart from those issues that I think need strengthening. Thanks.
Councillor McCartney, please.
I just received an email from North Yorkshire Council saying, welcome to the North Yorkshire Landscape Character Assessment. Well, we won't have any landscape character left when all this lot goes up. But the other point I want to make is about battery storage. For many years, for 60 years, the energy for Yorkshire being produced by Drax Power Station, Egbert Power Station, and Ferrybridge Power Station, all in our area, although one was in West Yorkshire. So what's happening now? Instead of spreading the pain across North Yorkshire, we're now dumping everything in the south of the Selby district. And basically, we're becoming another power station made up of lots of power generating, even with solar panels, in the same area as where we had all the power stations. Now, it's not green energy to create the energy in, say, near Selby or near my village, Carrington, and then sending it to Leeds. It's absolute madness. And we should be putting these in Hyde Park, in Leeds, where energy should be local to where people use it and not dumping on our rural areas. And it sucks. Miliband is an idiot.
That's twice now. We're going to get a third.
I'll give him your address.
Let's not bump into him.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Hugo, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to sort of echo what Andy Brown has said about keeping sheep under the solar panels. It happens every planning application we have for solar farms. We start talking about keeping sheep under it. I think this one, when it's going to the Secretary of State, it's our opportunity in North Yorkshire to say that we do. It's mentioned about the loss of farmland, the loss of farming, the loss of agriculture. This is an opportunity to let the Secretary of State know that we in North Yorkshire want to see our land being farmed, whether it's got solar panels on it or not. And keeping sheep underneath is one way of keeping that food production. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more debate? No, so I'm looking for a seconder to Councillor Brown's proposal, officer's recommendation. Councillor Peckham. We'll go for the vote. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Motion carried. Was there? Is there an abstention? Oh, sorry, Councillor Jones, I didn't see you there. One abstention. Thank you very much. We'll take a 2-minute break while we swap over officers, if that's all right. And